Welcome to your podcast, Toronto Tango,
Tango.
with Abhi.
Hi guys, and G.
How are you doing, Abhi? So tell me first, why are you doing this?
Man, like when did we have that coffee? What, 2 weeks ago or so? And it was we were just chatting, and it's like it dawned on me that it's been 15 years of me living in Toronto, and same with you. So I just thought, it'd be a good platform to share what we've learned about the city, where we come from, and like what we've been through, and just to share our experiences living in the city and surviving for a decade and a half in Toronto.
I don't know how much you know of the Latin American tradition. Have you heard about quinceañera?
No, I don't think so.
Quinceañera, and it's a huge tradition that celebrates the blooming of a teenager to the next phase of adulthood.
Oh, okay.
For me, because we came in the same year, represents a level of maturity.
100%.
It gives you this stamp or this medal of like,
Right. Like
oh,
you've moved on to the next phase.
exactly. I
Right,
think that
right,
we're
right.
like on level 2 because
Right.
at the end of the day, this podcast, I'm gonna bring my notes too. It's just it's going to be about the like how to establish in a city.
Yeah, 100%. What exactly, like the experiences that we went through, and like and what worked for us, what didn't work for us, where we are in life, and there's so much. There's like so much, and I wish I had a resource available to me that was, that would have provided all the things that I know now, because I would have been, like, I believe, that much more experienced, and in some ways perhaps even smarter. If I had known what to do and where to live, what part of the city not to go to, and like there's so many things, how to navigate the city, like what's the best way to get around the city, and so on and so forth.
What it's like to be a fresh face
Yeah.
in a new city. That's what we're gonna be talking about. And tell me, so I know that you came at the same time that I came, and that's in 2008.
I think you got here maybe like a week or two before me, because you attended the orientation as well. I wasn't able to, because like by the time I got my visa and was able to come to Canada, it was basically, I believe my course that I was taking at Seneca was starting on the 6th or the 7th of the month, and I landed on the 4th. So it was very cut short. Like I wasn't able to, like get used to the city and so on and so forth. But yeah, we did come here pretty much around the same time. Yeah.
What was your first impression when you met me? Because I've never asked you this question. So we've been friends for so long, right? And I think that this is gonna be another medium for us to have a different relationship, right?
True.
Because I want to share also what I
I honestly, I thought, like, I mean, the thing is, like, the course we took was it was a very it was a very intimate setting. It was like very few people that took that course. I think it was about maybe 15. We had a class of 15, and out of the 15 we had maybe 5 or 6 that were Canadians. Everybody else was from either India or from Bangladesh or from Thailand, and some from China, and so on and so forth. And then we had G. So in the course we had, I believe, two students from South America, and he was one of them. My first impression about you, you were just very pleasant and easy to talk to. I because like it was, I had, prior to coming to Canada, I studied in the UK, and I'm not an introvert by any means, but it was nice that like you always kind of feel a little bit apprehensive going into a completely new setting, let alone you're brand new into this country, and like I was 3 days to the day I met you in Canada. So it was just nice to have, like, kind of like, oh, this guy is like a very chill, nice guy, and like you were very pleasant and like happy, and you were excited to be here. So was I. So I think that was like our energies matched in that way. You explained me what your name was, because you always referred to yourself as G, and I was like, oh, okay. And then you told me, what was it? And it was Guillermo. And you're like, oh, you could pronounce it okay. And I'm like, yeah, I can. It's Guillermo. And he's like, yeah, okay, cool. And then that's that. What about you?
I do remember that you were late the first class.
Oh man, I'll tell you about that.
We had like something ridiculous, like 8 a.m. class.
Classes, yeah.
So most of us didn't live necessarily close. So in order for you to be on time at 8, it was basically 6 a.m. that you had to be already in the commute.
Yeah.
So I remember like 8 a.m. and so everyone started like the class, and then this is what it's like. These very well dressed men enter.
Thank you.
And it was like that guy dressed as cool. That's what I remember.
Oh, thanks.
And
man.
I thought maybe it didn't solidify at that point, but in the back of my mind I was like, oh, we're gonna be friends.
Nice.
That's what I thought.
Awesome.
That was the first
That's great.
thing.
That makes me very happy.
And I remember that you were late.
I was
and
late.
Yeah, so what happened?
I honestly, it was the same thing. So I used to live downtown back in the day. When I mean, I still live downtown. We both do now. But when we first started the school, G was living up pretty close to the campus. You weren't living in the res, and I was living downtown with my girlfriend at that time. And for me, honestly, like just to navigate it and stuff, like I didn't realize how, and again, going back to the first impression of the country, like how big Canada is, and the distances itself, like they're just massive. Like, you know, like Markham from here, it's about 35-40 kilometers. And for me to like navigate those 35-40 kilometers, given I didn't drive back then, I didn't have a vehicle, so I had to take the transit. So just with like changing the transit multiple times, trying to figure it out. My thing was I would wake up at 5:30 in the morning to be able to make it for the 8 a.m. class. And if I like, let's say wake up at 5:30, shower, and I'm out the door by 6:15ish, I'd be lucky to make for the 8 a.m. class. And that was it. It was just me like trying to figure out how to get there in the most reasonable time and what's the most direct route. I'm sure it has changed or gotten better since, but at that point I had to change 3 buses, I guess, right? And that was a lot. That was a lot of back and forth, but it was all worth it. That's why I was late multiple times, not just that one time.
Why do you think this podcast is called Toronto Tango?
Well, Toronto, that's self-explanatory. We both live in Toronto. Tango it's because like it is basically, you know, like we're just sharing our experience, which is basically like, in a way, like tango is a kind of dance, right? Like the city is just kind of like bounced us around, and like we're kind of like enjoying it at times, and sometimes we're not. So it's just, I think that's it.
Sometimes you lead the way,
yeah,
and sometimes you get led by someone else,
exactly,
right? So
yeah.
It takes two to tango.
Yeah.
So that's why
that's it. Yeah.
Toronto Tango is like we're always been like in this up and down, sometimes good times, sometimes like
Bad
harder times,
sometimes very hard times,
challenging times, and
yeah.
that's what we're gonna be talking in this podcast. And just to understand a little bit of ourselves, who we are, tell me a little bit of briefly, Abhi, where are you from, where are you coming from, and why?
Right. I mean, if you can't tell by my accent and the way I look, I was born and raised in India. I lived in India till shortly after, I think, I finished high school in India. Then I did 2 years of my college there. Then I moved to the UK. I was privileged enough to be able to go to the UK. And, you know, I did my post-grad in UK. I lived in the UK for almost 3-4 years, and then at that point I was kind of wondering where to go next, and there were a couple of options that I had on my you know checkbook, or my checklist rather, and one was Canada, and yeah, that's it. I just made up the decision to come to Canada. What about you?
So for me, I come from El Salvador, and Spanish is my native language. I got to tell you that for me, what big part of the age of 25 when I moved, I wanted to create a different version of me.
Jesus, man, we were so young.
In almost 25 years is not that young. Right? I wanted to create a different version of me. I wanted to sort of like renew myself in a way, but in a different way of thinking, in a different language, in a different way of constructing, because accomplished at that age everything that I wanted by then, back in my hometown El Salvador. So I wanted something else, so that's why I came here. And luckily as well, I had the opportunity to be an international student and learn a little bit, not only about the knowledge that you get in college, but also what it's
the
like.
cultural aspect of it, right? Like, to me, the biggest thing was that, like, living in the UK and being able to, like, you know, work in the UK and study there and stuff, you kind of you just realize how you know, how it's such a melting pot, you know, like growing up in India, like it's such a big country and it's culturally like very diverse, but at the same time you don't get that kind of exposure as you would if you were to be an international student, for instance. And that was it. Like I had that little itch as well, where I was wanting to explore more and, you know, better myself in many ways, and going to India just seemed like the easier option to me, because again, like if I were to go home, I could just stay at home, work for one of the family businesses that my family owns, and there was no room for me to grow. And so I wanted to challenge myself, and after finishing the studies in the UK, working there for a bit, I thought this is a good call to move. So pretty much very similar to yours. You're just looking to better yourself, right? And that's it. Canada was a good option because, again, like I knew some Canadians in the UK and they always came across as very chill, fun, my kind of people. So that was it.
All right, and so I think that you got a little bit of a sense of who we are and what are we going to be talking about in this podcast. As Abhi mentioned, is like because it's called, or I guess the slogan of the Toronto Tango is mishaps, triumphs, and urban wisdom.
Exactly it. Yeah, like it you know, like it's there's so much to know about this city. Like there's so much that we learned about the city, just being international students, and you know, like just to, like, whether it was where do you go for a drink after school, or like where should we start our job search, and like what do we do next. And there's that question always like looms above us, right? Like I'm still trying to figure out where I want to go next. But again, like as previously mentioned, if I had the opportunity, or rather the experience that I have gained and G has gained in the last 15 years, if somebody were to be like, you know, you could do this. Again, I'm not saying all these things are going to be universally applicable, but it's a nice resource to have. And I wish I had that. And that's what we're doing. We're just hoping to share it all.
And when we were like just chat, because this, like, I know that there's like people like, oh, I'm gonna create a podcast and like I have this idea, etc. Like this literally, after 15 years of friendship, came out of a coffee.
Yeah.
On a random
Thursday
weekday
afternoon.
Honestly, like it was very. I think that we're both also in that moment in life when also we have that willingness and like, okay, I've acquired enough knowledge, and then maybe it's good to put it out there, right?
Yeah,
and to share it. So I think that that's gonna be one of the main topics, because we have like incredible topics, like other than getting a pint, for example. What's another topic that we're gonna have?
Traffic in the city. Jesus Christ, can't even get started on that.
Why can we afford buying a house in the city, for example?
I mean, like we were chatting about it the other day, we've done everything by the book. We have done every single thing by the book, and we're still not there. That is crazy. You know?
Another urban wisdom that Abhi and myself have is like we both work in the industry, in the food industry, that it's such an important part of living in the city. So we're gonna be sharing with you all the tips and secrets and experiences that we have, especially in that sector. We're gonna be talking about like picky eaters too.
Oh yeah, picky eaters. The transit system in the city, how to navigate the city. There's some really interesting topics there, and we're excited to share all that. Because between me and G, like I ride my bicycle everywhere. G drives his car everywhere. I have a motorcycle, so I ride that as well. So between between the two of us, I include my motorcycle as another individual. Sorry.
I mean, they stole my bike, and like we're gonna have a whole episode about it because the knowledge that I acquire about, like, after my 6th bike being stolen in the city, right? Like, you know, like you had the opportunity also to live in another big city like London, Toronto, New York. They're like famous because literally, there's a huge, I wouldn't say industry, there's a huge market for it, right? Stuff, operation knowledge that like the other side also have. So why not sharing from the user perspective or the in this case for us, the writer's perspective. So it's gonna be awesome.
It's gonna be great.
Yeah, so thank you very much for joining us and joining us to the next one, and we're gonna talk a little bit more in your podcast
Toronto Tango. Thanks again, guys.